I'm Elizabeth Mendia. I'm Executive Director of the Whittier Rio Hondo AIDS Project, Whittier being a suburb in Los Angeles. But there's obviously, like all of us, many dimensions to who I am. I'm also Latina, the daughter of Mexican immigrants from northern Mexico, from Sonora and Sinaloa. I'm transsexual. I identify as a bisexual woman, but I'm married to a woman who identifies as lesbian, and I'm HIV positive. So those are all aspects to who I am. Sometimes I joke that I'm like the poster child for diversity because I encompass so much when we talk about LGBTQ. You know, it's sort of all mixed in there. I knew at a very early age that about my gender identity, and even though I had no words for it, I knew I wanted to be a girl. Those are among my earliest recollections. There were incidents where, I vividly remember almost initiating self-harm because of it at a very, very young age. So I had this awareness, but I certainly didn't have any terms to put to the awareness until much later in life, because, you know, I'm 47 years old. When I was dealing with this, there really wasn't, I think, even much societal awareness around trans issues, certainly not from my parents. And although my mother, for example, knew that I always had a stash of girls' clothes, because fortunately I have a sister that's a year and a half older. So I always would steal some of her clothes, and I had my little hidden stash of clothes, and my mom always knew that. And I knew she knew because occasionally I would find my clothes folded and washed and back in my hiding spot. But she never talked to me about it, and what that created was a situation where my mother and I had an understanding, but it was an unspoken, an unspoken understanding. Having, lived 30 years as we have in the United States with HIV, and many of the people that have been in the fight have sort of checked out, have moved on, have decided to do other things, forgetting the fact that there's 25 million people not on meds, 35 million people living with the virus, maybe closer to 20 million not on meds. But even though we've made a difference, even though we've come a tremendous way in the United States and other nations that have greater financial resources, the fight against AIDS is far, far from over. And I think those of us that have seen the death and dying here, I think we have an obligation to think about the death and dying in other countries, because those lives are just as valuable as ours. And for us to have such a negative association as Latinos on 41 simply because it just perpetuates so much negativity and bigotry, that makes me angry, and it makes me sad, that we still do have a long way to go. And of course, that's why I really am thrilled for projects like the 41, and I really there's a lot that I really like about the program, because it's reclaiming a negative label, much as we've reclaimed queer, but it also, I think, can have big impact because it has the potential to be a brand in a way that I think we live in a society that's all about the brands, and I think the 41 can carry that message far, just by virtue that there is this negative association, and it is a number. So I'm very excited about it, and I think your desire to highlight positive role models, I think, is really important, and because we know from what we know about identity development is that there comes a time when people are questioning their identity, and they're trying to define who they are, and having that person that they can look to and say, oh, that I could be that, is hugely important. And if I knew innately that I was transgender, but I didn't go into therapy and really, do the work, and talk to a therapist and talk, and really sit down and reflect and make decisions until, as I said, if I could speak to my younger self, I would have transitioned earlier. And so I think I would encourage young people to, if they're questioning, to get into some sort of a supportive program and really start to explore those issues with a counselor, with other trans people, because not dealing with it or just dealing with it superficially, obviously the feelings aren't going to go away, and you're not going to get to where you need to be. So I would also say that, again, the world is more forgiving, I think, than we make it out to be. Sometimes things are not as bad as we imagine. They're never as bad as we imagine that they're going to be. Sometimes people have said, "Oh, Liz, you're really brave for doing this or that or coming out." I'm like, no, I wasn't. I was a coward. It took me forever to do it, I would say, just and I didn't because of my fear. So don't let your fears dominate your life.